The Irish mist danced between the wooden structures of the Vikings set, and Travis Fimmel walked alone among the empty scenarios. It was late at night, and silence weighed over Ashford Studios like an ancestral mantle. His boots stepped on the artificial earth with hesitation, each step echoing the insecurity he carried in his chest. 3 weeks of filming, and he still couldn't sleep properly. Ragnar Lothbrok. The name resonated in his mind like an impossible challenge. A legendary Viking king, a mythical warrior, a man who should die at the end of this first season if it would be successful enough to justify its own existence. Maybe it's better this way, he murmured to himself, adjusting the leather tunic he still wore after the last take. 1 season and that's it. I'll go back to the farm, forget all this madness. The money is good, but I'm starting to lose my sanity. This isn't for me. Producer Michael Hurst had been clear from the beginning. Ragnar had a defined arc, a destiny sealed in the script pages. Travis was just the temporary vehicle for a story already written in history books and Norse mythology, an Australian model trying to be an actor, trying to carry the weight of an epic production when he could barely carry the weight of his own expectations. He approached the scenographic bonfire that still burned low in the center of the Viking camp. The flames flickered lazily, painting dancing shadows on the leather tents and hanging shields. Travis let himself fall onto a log used as a bench and buried his face in his calloused hands from so much training with fake swords. "I don't know if I can do it," he whispered to the weak flames. "Everyone is expecting a king, and I'm nothing but a farm boy who doesn't even know how to hold a sword properly. Better go back to commercials. I'm not cut out for this. I miss the tranquility of Australia, my land, my life. This business of blood and deaths has nothing to do with me. I'm a failure from the start, and everyone believing I'll be the greatest Viking king. How pathetic." The self-deprecation echoed through the empty set like a painful confession. Travis felt the weight of millions of expectations on his shoulders, fans who didn't even know the series yet, critics ready to destroy any inadequate interpretation, and mainly the internal pressure of a man who had left the security of a simple life to pursue a dream that now seemed impossible to achieve. Fatigue overcame him right there, before the ancestral fire that wouldn't take long to extinguish. Travis Fimmel fell asleep with the weight of a kingdom he didn't think he deserved to carry. It was the sound that awakened him first. Not a noise, but a change in the quality of silence. The fire had grown impossibly. Its flames now danced high and wild, painting the entire scenery with a golden and intense light that transformed the artificial set into something genuinely ancestral. The air now carried an aroma of truly burned wood, sun-cured leather and something more, something ancient, indomitable and deeply real. Travis opened his eyes and felt his heart accelerate. The mist had thickened, flowing between the tents like spectral fingers of a lost era, and when he blinked to dispel the confusion of sleep, he saw he was no longer alone. Sitting on the other side of the bonfire, as if he had always been there since the beginning of time, a man with graying hair and majestic bearing observed him with an imperial calm that made the air seem denser. He wore a Roman tunic in earthy tones, but there was something timeless in his presence, as if Marcus Aurelius and Richard Harris had merged into a single entity that transcended both character and actor, becoming something greater than the sum of its parts. "You're afraid, lad," said the man, his voice loaded with that unmistakable Irish accent, but now there was an ethereal quality in it, like an echo of all the ages he had witnessed. "And there's no shame in that. Fear is the first wisdom of any warrior, but it's also the first enemy that must be conquered." Travis tried to move, but discovered he couldn't. Not because he was paralyzed, but because something inside him recognized he was before something sacred, something that shouldn't be disturbed with brusque movements or vulgar incredulity. You are..." Travis swallowed hard, his voice coming out hoarse. "You're Richard Harris, but you died." The man smiled, and in that smile, Travis saw not just the Irish actor, but all the kings, warriors, and sages he had embodied. "Death is just another form of acting, my son. Sometimes the most important roles come after we leave the stage. The true immortality of an actor isn't in continuing to breathe, but in how their interpretations continue alive in the soul of those who witness them." He leaned slightly forward, his eyes reflecting the flames like mirrors of millenary wisdom. "I am many things now. I've been Camelot and Rome. I've been King Arthur and Marcus Aurelius. I've been man and legend. But today I'm just an old actor who came to give advice to a young actor who's about to give up the opportunity of his life. How do you know that I... Because I've been where you are now, Harris interrupted gently but firmly. Do you think I never doubted? That I never looked at a script, at a character larger than life and thought, who am I to try to be this legend? When they offered me Arthur in Camelot, I had been drunk for 3 days and had just fought with my wife. I felt like a failure as a man, let alone as a king. When they gave me Marcus Aurelius, I was 68 years old, had arthritis in my hands, and a career many considered in decline. But do you know what the difference was? Travis shook his head, hypnotized by the raw and vulnerable honesty of the great actor. I stopped trying to be worthy of the characters and started letting them be worthy of me. Harris raised his hand, and the sparks from the bonfire danced around his fingers as if they were living beings responding to his call. You're asking yourself the wrong question, Travis Fimmel. The question isn't whether you're enough for Ragnar Lothbrok. The question is whether Ragnar Lothbrok is enough to contain everything you have inside you, whether this Norse legend can sustain the weight of your truth, your passion, your raw and genuine humanity. I don't understand. What are you talking about, damn it? Travis murmured, feeling he was on the verge of understanding something fundamental about himself, but still fighting against years of self-sabotage. Harris stood with the grace of an emperor who intimately knows both glory and defeat, and his figure seemed to grow, filling the space around the bonfire with a presence that transcended the physical. Let me tell you a story, lad. When I was making A Man Called Horse, the director wanted me to pretend to be an English Indian, civilized on the outside, but with a touch of controlled savagery to please the cinemas. I told him, I'm not going to pretend to be savage for anyone. I'm going to find the savage that already exists inside me, and I'm going to let him breathe. And that's what I did. I stopped trying to imitate how I thought an Indian should act, and started listening to the primitive instincts, the savage impulses, the ancestral connection to the earth that every man carries in his blood, but which civilization teaches us to hide. Travis felt something stir inside him, as if something dormant and powerful was gradually awakening, breaking the chains of years of social conditioning and insecurity. Ragnar Lothbrok cannot be imitated, my young friend, continued Harris, walking around the bonfire without making noise, as if his feet didn't touch the ground. He must be lived, breathed, bled. Viking blood must run through your veins. The warrior spirit must roar in your chest. The thirst for adventure must burn in your bones like ancestral fever. But more importantly, he stopped directly in front of Travis, his eyes penetrating his soul like spears of light. You must stop trying to please everyone and start being brutally honest with yourself. Stop representing the man you think you should be and start embodying the man you really are. But what if I fail? What if the series doesn't work out? What if I can't? Travis felt his voice break, years of insecurities coming to the surface like pus from an infected wound. Harris raised his hand with a gesture that carried all the authority of Marcus Aurelius on his deathbed, but also all the compassion of an understanding father. Fail? Lad, you're already failing. You're failing to be yourself. You're failing to trust the instincts that brought you here. You're failing to recognize that it wasn't luck that made the producers choose you among thousands of actors. So what if you fail? Are you going to sit there crying like a little girl? Or are you going to get up, clean the blood from your nose, and head to the next script? His voice intensified, loaded with fierce passion. Now ask the right question. What if it works? What if you discover you have inside you a king you don't even know yourself? What if Ragnar is just the beginning of what you're capable of creating? The words hit Travis like warhammer blows, each one demolishing a layer of self-sabotage he had carefully built over the years as a fortress against disappointment. Listen to me well, young Viking, continued Harris, his voice now carrying the weight of all the battles he had fought, both on screen and in real life. In Gladiator, when Ridley Scott directed me as Marcus Aurelius, he told me something I never forgot. Richard, I don't want you to act like an emperor. I want you to find the emperor that already exists inside you, that has always existed, waiting for the right moment to emerge. And do you know what I discovered in that moment of revelation? That every man carries inside him an emperor, a warrior, a king, a noble savage. You just need to have enough courage to stop being afraid of them and finally let them emerge into the light. Travis felt hot tears roll down his face, but they weren't tears of sadness or self-pity. They were tears of deep recognition, as if he was finally seeing himself clearly for the first time in his life, without the distorted filters of fear and insecurity. "The audience doesn't want your technical perfection, Travis," Harris continued, his voice softening without losing a gram of intensity. "They don't want to see you desperately trying to be Ragnar. They want to see Ragnar being you, authentic, raw, real. They want to see a real man fighting with real fears, loving with real passion, dying with real courage. They want to see your emotional scars, your unhealed pains, your victories conquered with sweat and blood." He knelt before Travis, placing his hands on the young actor's shoulders with the firmness of a father. "Ragnar Lothbrok wasn't perfect, my son. He was brutal and tender at the same time. Wise as an oracle and impulsive as a child. Loyal as a war dog and treacherous as a hungry serpent. He was deeply, desperately, magnificently human. And you, Travis Fimmel, you have all of that inside you waiting to be freed. How can you be so sure?" Travis asked, his voice a broken whisper that carried decades of unresolved doubts. Harris smiled, and for a moment his appearance flickered like dancing flames, showing glimpses of all the characters he had interpreted. The young and idealistic King Arthur fighting for an impossible dream, the tired but wise Marcus Aurelius facing mortality, the man called Horse surviving against all odds in wild lands. "Because I can see, lad. I can see beyond the mask of insecurity you wear. I can see the Australian farm boy who had enough courage to leave everything behind, security, family, the known life, and pursue an apparently impossible dream in a foreign land where no one knew him. I can see the man who accepts impossible risks when everything seems lost, who fights against statistically impossible odds, who flatly refuses to surrender even when his own cruel mind whispers that he's not good enough." Harris squeezed Travis's shoulders with a force that seemed to transfer decades of experience and wisdom. "That brave man, that tireless fighter, that stubborn dreamer, he's already Ragnar, Travis. Always has been. The only difference is that Ragnar never doubted his own greatness, and it's finally time for you to stop doubting yours too." Travis closed his eyes, feeling the words penetrate deep into his soul like seeds of a new identity, planted in fertile soil, finally ready to receive them. When he opened them again, something had fundamentally changed. It wasn't just a new superficial determination or a temporarily better mood. It was something deeper, more permanent, as if an essential part of himself that was asleep had finally awakened and authoritatively reclaimed its rightful place in his soul. "But why did you come?" Travis asked, genuinely curious. "Why now? Why me?" Harris stood majestically, and the mist began to thicken around him, as if time itself was calling him back to whatever ethereal realm he had emerged from. But he showed no hurry at all. He observed Travis with a deeply satisfied paternal smile, his eyes shining with a tranquility that came from the certainty of a mission accomplished. "Because some stories are too important to be left to chance, my son. Because every true actor needs to learn that he's not alone on life's great stage, that there exists an invisible fraternity of artists that extends through time and death." He laughed, a rich and deep sound that echoed through the mist like an echo of lost golden ages. "And because I too have been exactly where you are now, lost, afraid, doubting every instinct, and I know that on the other side of that seemingly insurmountable doubt exists a greatness you can't even imagine yet." The mist was now rising in mystical spirals around Harris, beginning to gradually obscure his majestic figure, but his voice remained crystalline, loaded with one last wisdom that would resonate in Travis's soul forever. "Take your pain to the character, Travis. Take your raw strength, your unresolved fears, your secret dreams, your emotional scars, your victories conquered with blood. Everything, absolutely everything. That's what will make Ragnar eternal. That's what will make you truly unforgettable." Harris walked slowly toward the mist that called him, but before disappearing completely into the ether, he turned one last time, a mysterious and prophetic smile playing on his eternal lips. "And always remember, young Viking, some deaths are just the beginning of a much greater legend. Ragnar was supposed to die at the end of this first season, but the best stories have a magical way of refusing to end when they still have something truly important to say to the world." With these prophetic words echoing like an ancestral oracle, Richard Harris disappeared completely into the mist, like a king returning to his eternal kingdom, leaving only the sacred echo of his wisdom and the fire that now burned lower, gradually returning to the normality of the physical world. Travis woke with the first golden light of morning, still sitting on the log before the now cold and common bonfire. For a brief moment, he questioned whether he had dreamed it all, but then he felt it. Something had permanently and irreversibly changed inside him. It wasn't just a mood change or a new passing determination. It was something deeper, more structural, as if a fundamental part of himself that was asleep had finally awakened and authoritatively reclaimed its rightful place in his soul. He stood with completely new grace, a confidence that emerged from within outward like a natural spring, and walked to the dressing room mirror. The same face stared back at him, but there was something completely different in the eyes, a deep and powerful quietude, an unshakable certainty that wasn't there before. When he put on Ragnar's costume, the time-weathered leather clothes, the meticulously forged armor, the animal furs that seemed to carry the genuine smell of the northern wildlands, he didn't feel like he was disguising himself or pretending to be someone else. He felt like he was finally revealing himself, showing the world who he really was beneath all the protective layers of doubt and insecurity. The first scene of that transformative day was a complex and brutal fight sequence. Travis had rehearsed the movements dozens of times with the stunt coordinator, but had always felt like someone pretending to be a warrior, a common civilian clumsily playing soldier. When the cameras started rolling, however, something absolutely magical and inexplicable happened. Every movement flowed naturally like water running in its ancestral bed. Every sword blow carried genuine weight and deadly intention. When Ragnar roared with rage before enemies, it was Travis's own Viking soul emerging from the depths of his being. When he smiled with cruel malice before battle, it was the smile of a man who had finally completely embraced his warrior nature and was no longer afraid to show his teeth. "Cut!" shouted the director, but his voice carried genuine amazement instead of the usual technical correction. He approached Travis with quick steps, his eyes shining with pure excitement. "Travis, my God, that was absolutely extraordinary. Where the hell were you hiding all that?" Travis smiled, and it was Ragnar's smile, confident, mysterious, loaded with ancestral secrets. "I wasn't hiding anything. I was just waiting for the right moment to let it out." In the days that followed, the entire crew noticed the radical and undeniable transformation. There was a magnetic presence in Travis that simply didn't exist before, a natural confidence that completely transcended technical interpretation. He was no longer trying to be Ragnar. He simply was Ragnar, and Ragnar was him. The difference was palpable, electric, transforming each scene into something truly special and memorable. The other actors responded differently to him, as if they felt a completely new energy emanating from his presence. The cameras captured an intensity that couldn't be faked, manufactured or taught in any acting school. Even the costume designers and makeup artists commented that something had changed profoundly, as if Travis had finally found the missing piece in his soul. Months later, when Michael Hurst met with History Channel executives to discuss the series' future, one thing became crystal clear. Killing Ragnar at the end of the first season would be not only criminal waste, but an unforgivable creative crime. "The original plan was to end Ragnar's journey here," said Hurst, leafing through the pages of the original script with almost religious reverence. "But Travis did something with Ragnar that I never thought possible in my career. He's not just interpreting a Norse legend, he became the legend itself. He is Ragnar Lothbrok in a way that completely transcends acting. It's as if the Viking spirit itself had found a new body to inhabit in the 21st century. Travis continued as Ragnar for 3 more epic seasons, each exploring even deeper and more complex layers of the character. His interpretation became truly iconic, forever defining how the entire world would see the legendary Viking king. Renowned international critics and passionate fans unanimously agreed Travis Fimmel hadn't simply interpreted Ragnar Lothbrok, he had resurrected a mythological figure in a way that would resonate through generations, eternizing both character and actor. And sometimes on silent and misty nights on set, Travis swore he could feel a familiar presence approving from beyond, a wise and paternal smile lost in the Irish mist, a tranquil approval that whispered that the young Viking had finally found his way home. The Ghost King's advice had become prophetic reality. Ragnar was truly eternal, and Travis had become unforgettable. The transformation that began on a misty night before a scenographic bonfire had changed not just a career, but the entire course of a series, the destiny of a character, and the life of a man who finally learned that sometimes the greatest courage isn't in trying to be someone we're not, but in having the bravery to reveal who we really are. In the entertainment world, where dreams and reality dance together like ancient flames in a sacred bonfire, where legends are born and die each season, this might be the most natural and magical thing in the world, that sometimes, just sometimes, the ghosts of great masters return to ensure that the most important stories continue being told the way they deserve to be told. And now I ask you, my dear listener, how many times have you felt like Travis that night, doubting your own capacity, questioning if you deserve to be where you are, fearing you're not enough for the challenges life places before you? Could there be inside you too a sleeping Ragnar waiting for the right moment to emerge? A braver, more authentic, more powerful version of who you are? What bonfires do you need to visit in your own journey? What difficult conversations with yourself are waiting to be had? What if, just like Travis discovered, the question wasn't, am I enough for this challenge? But rather, is this challenge enough to contain everything I have inside me? What ghost kings from your own life, mentors, inspirations, examples of greatness, are trying to whisper advice you're not yet ready to hear? A deep gratitude to you who reached the end of this journey. Stories like this only come alive when they find souls willing to receive them, and you gave me the most precious gift that exists, your attention and your time. If this narrative touched something inside you, if it awakened some spark of recognition or inspiration, don't let it get lost in the daily whirlwind. Share this story with someone who needs to hear that it's possible to transform, that it's possible to find the sleeping hero inside oneself. Your next action: look in the mirror today and ask, what extraordinary character is waiting to emerge from within you? And how about stopping waiting for the world's permission to finally let them breathe? The greatest tragedy isn't dying with unrealized dreams, it's living an entire life without ever discovering who you really could have been.